Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Shinani. I'm a proud member of the JNFuture board in Central New Jersey. I'm joined here tonight with my wonderful, beautiful wife, Allison. We're both thrilled to be on this call and welcome all of you to this wonderful event. Both Allie and I work in the healthcare profession. I'm the Director of Public Affairs for a hospital in Bergen County, and Allie is a senior speech-language pathologist at a hospital here in Union. Working on the front lines has certainly been challenging, but rewarding at the same time during this very difficult time. And it's been great to have our friends at the Jewish National Fund supporting us during all of it. For generations, baseball in North America has strengthened communities and provided children with important and fun opportunities. Jewish National Fund's Project Baseball brings this sport, which builds sportsmanship, fosters teamwork, and cultivates confidence to Israel, where it is quickly growing into a beloved pastime, much like here in the States. Recently, Team Israel qualified for the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, making Israel only one of 6 countries represented in the baseball global competition. Recently, of course, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Tokyo Games have been postponed until summer of 2021. Team Israel has significantly strengthened its roster for the Olympics, adding 4 new players from the WBC team, among them Ryan Lavarnway, who was the MVP, and also Ian Kinsler, arguably the best Jewish second baseman in the history of baseball. All of these players made Aliyah and now hold Israeli citizenship. And the goal of Team Israel is to win a medal in Tokyo. As most of the players will soon be playing within the framework of their respective teams, either in the minor or independent leagues, the next time Team Israel will practice and prepare together will be in July 2021, in the weeks just leading up to the games, at a mini camp in the Northeast United States, as well as a barnstorming tour of games in select cities and stadiums across the Northeast United States. Details about these games will be made available, and fans will be able to come out and watch the team and support the team prior to leaving to Tokyo. Now, I'd like to hand it over to Jeff Feinstein, who will briefly introduce our 3 panelists.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Michael and Allison. It's great to, be here. So this event originally was supposed to be at my house in Short Hills, but this is much better because my wife told me we couldn't fit 200 people in our house, so I think this worked out a lot better. Just some background. I grew up in Jersey. My parents were involved with JNF. My grandparents were involved with JNF. I got involved with JNF through Israel baseball. It's a real passion from a charitable, side of mine and my wife. And, it's just an incredible organization. So when I first heard about JNF and Project Israel, Project Baseball, my first thought was, JNF was the organization that planted all the trees and that you have the tzedakah boxes in Temple. But, I'm learning that it's so much more than that. So, through all the support of JNF with Russell and Mitch and Mark Radner, who I believe is joining on the call, JNF is building some incredible baseball fields in Israel. So they're supporting the youth baseball program. They're supporting some international competitions. It's just an incredible organization. So I'm excited to be here. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. It's a unique time. So we'll kind of kick it off, and I'll introduce all the players and talk a little about them. And then we'll turn it over to them, and they'll tell their stories and answer questions that everybody has. So this is supposed to be interactive, so please chime in with questions. Please use the chat feature to type in your questions. I have some that were submitted with the registrations. But let's start to introduce the players and just go through some background. So the first player joining us is Eric Brodkowitz. Eric is, he went to Yale. He's an honor student. He was an honor student, excuse me. He played college baseball. He works in fixed income at Goldman Sachs. He's playing in the Olympics for Israel. So he's basically every Jewish parent's dream child. We'll hear from him in a little bit, but he's not playing professional baseball, but he is continuing on his career with the Israel baseball team in the Olympics. The next player joining us is Jonathan DeMarte. So Jonathan is from New York. He was a Gatorade High School Player of the Year for the state of New York. He played professional baseball for a number of years, played in the independent ball system, and then he went on to actually recently sign a contract with the Chicago Cubs. And he played for Team Israel in both the European qualifiers and in the World Baseball Classic. So that's something that that Michael and Allison touched on, and we're going to jump into, when we get to the players. And the last player is going to be John Moscott, and John has accomplished something that only few professional baseball players have done in history. So John played in Major League Baseball with the Cincinnati Reds for a couple years. So he is originally from New York. He was from California. He was drafted in the 4th round of Major League Baseball draft. Played for the Reds for a number of years. He took a trip to Israel, where he represented Israel on a goodwill tour, talking about Team Israel and the World Baseball Classic and the Olympics. And we're going to hear from John to talk about, what he's been up to since he retired from baseball a couple years ago. He's currently working in baseball now with the Cincinnati Reds. And it's just going to be an exciting evening. So let's kind of jump right in and turn it over and talk to the players. They're going to talk about their experiences with Team Israel, how they're preparing for the Olympics, and their connection to Judaism. So the first player that we're going to kick it off with is going to be Eric. So Eric, why don't we talk about your Jewish story, your baseball background, and how it feels to be every Jewish parent's dream child.
Jeff, I wish I could take you around with me and you could talk to all my friends and all the people that I meet out on the street, because that is quite the introduction. So thank you very much for that. Like Jeff said, my name is Eric Brodkowitz. I am a pitcher on the Israeli national team. I've been on the team and associated with the team since 2018 when I graduated from Yale University. And yeah, my entire baseball story growing up has sort of been an intertwinement of baseball and Judaism. Growing up, my grandfather was intimately involved in my development and love for the sport. And it was something where he would either come to my games or not come to my games, depending on the superstition level that he was feeling that day. So, if he had been there, call it a week before, and I'd pitched really well, he would come to the game. If not, he would stay away. And I think, one of the things is in our state championship game, it wound up being that he was on a spree of not coming to the games. And so he, ultimately didn't come to our high school state championship game. So it was one of those things that, it's been something that's been so important to my development, to my relationship with my dad, with my grandfather, who's been intimately involved with my life in a Jewish way as well. He's been an active donor to JNF for our entire lives. It's been something that's been very much passed down and something that's imparted upon us, the value of JNF, the value of giving tzedakah. And yeah, so really, baseball and Judaism have kind of always been very intertwined for me. Baseball has always been one of those things that's taken me to, crazy cool opportunities. So one of them was the an opportunity to go to Yale to play baseball, which I'm very, very fortunate for. At Yale, I developed incredible relationships with our Chabad rabbi, Rabbi Meir Chaim, Rabbi Posner, Rabbi Rutenstein. And so, those are just some of Rosenstein, those are, some of the people and the relationships that I really got to explore because of my baseball background. I was a starting pitcher all 4 years while I was at Yale. We went to 3 Ivy League championships, won one of them. We played in the College World, or in a qualifier and a regional for College World Series. So I really, had a very, very good experience playing baseball at Yale. And then, coming out of that, it was my senior year. We were in one of the Ivy League championship games, and we played a 15-inning game. In game 2, we lost game 1, and I pitched 7 innings. I think I gave up 1 run. Actually, I know I gave up 1 run because it was a home run to the worst hitter on the team. So coming out of that, it was tied 1-1. Came out after 7 innings. We wound up going to 15 innings. We wound up losing 2-1 in the bottom of the 15th to Columbia, and I'm coming out of that, thinking that my baseball career is probably over. I thought it was, there was a chance I'd get drafted. I had a really good senior year, but the years before it weren't that good. So there's a chance, but I thought my baseball career was probably over. And then lo and behold, 2 weeks later, I'm at my house with my family, and the head coach, Eric Holtz, calls me and he says, hey, I'm Eric Holtz. I'm coaching the Israeli national team, and my son plays at Columbia. I was going down the roster, and I saw this guy pitching. Broadquist is definitely Jewish, so I figured, love to see you play. We'd love to have you on the team. There is the expectation that if you are on the team, there's a requirement for you to become an Israeli citizen. Is that, something you'd be interested in? Is that something you'd be willing to do? Me, I'd been on birthright after my sophomore year. It was something that was incredibly, very touching, and it was a really, really special connection that I felt with Israel after. So, the opportunity to continue playing baseball and represent Israel, to become an Israeli citizen, this was everything that I kind of could have hoped and dreamed for. And so, without thinking, I was like, yes, I'll definitely do it. And he's like, there's a chance that you may need to miss, 3 or 4 weeks of work the next summer, but they'll deal with it. They'll figure it out. We'll see what happens. And this is going to be a priority for me. And, so it wound up being that we missed, over 3 to 4 weeks of work last week. They were okay with it. They got past it. And so I was fortunate enough to have been a part of this really, really cool opportunity where we were able to represent Israel on the international stage and be really successful. And so it's been, a dream and a blessing. And, I've been very fortunate to have the, culmination of baseball and Judaism in my life sort of play out in such a cool way. So, that's a little bit about me. I think, am I doing the turnover, or is it you, Jeff? What do we got?
Turn it over. And I might as well get this out of the way because we have 2 Johns on the call, and they're both pitchers and they both play for Team Israel. So maybe I'll call John DeMarte, I guess, JDM, and then John Moscott, I'll call you John. So if you guys are cool with that, that's great. So I'll turn it over to JDM. I gave some of his background. It's very impressive. High school player of the year. He played at University of Richmond, played in minor league baseball, and then now has signed a pro career with the Cubs. So John, why don't you give some of your background, talk about your pro history, how you came to Team Israel, and what it's been like and how you're getting ready.
You guys, okay. I think I'm unmuted. So my way to Team Israel was a little bit different than Eric's. Given my last name, DeMarte, I'm sure most of you are wondering what the Jewish connection is. So I'll go back a little bit. First off, I grew up in Yorktown Heights, New York, part of northern Westchester County, and my mother and her family were Jewish. My father was not. They decided to raise us Jewish. I belonged to a Reformed temple in Yorktown Heights, and I was bar mitzvahed at age 13, and my brothers and sister were b'nai mitzvahed shortly after. They were 13, I had turned 16. I will say, I think that after this, there was definitely, once you move on to college, sometimes you have so much going on, from athletics to academics to social life, that I think maybe Judaism and religion took a back seat for a little bit. And I think I started to feel the connection again when I started following the World Baseball Classic team in 2017. So fast forward, I had a pretty tough college baseball experience. Most of my undergraduate time, I was injured, found myself away from baseball, trying to find ways to rehab, recover, and get better. So I played throughout grad school at University of Richmond. So I was a 5th and 6th year senior at University of Richmond. And I will never forget, in 2017, we were playing somewhere down in Texas. And I remember making a point to, this was during the 2017 World Baseball Classic, watch every single one of Israel's games. And I said throughout this time, this is something I would love to be involved in. I would love to represent Israel, represent Jewish people all over the world. And I didn't really know how to get involved. So I started playing independent ball right after my sixth and final year of college baseball in 2017. So that was my first season. And then in 2018 was my first full season. Our manager approached me one day and asked if I had any interest in playing winter ball. And I said I wanted to somehow get involved with Team Israel. Literally the next morning, I got a call from our manager telling me that he had made some phone calls and to expect to hear something soon. Very shortly after, just like Eric, I got the same kind of phone call asking if I would like to join the team. And Coach Holtz also let me know about all the requirements and asked me if I'd be interested in obtaining Israeli citizenship would be something I'm interested in. And I jumped on the opportunity. One thing that Eric said to me when he called me was, I had no idea that you were Jewish based on your last name. So I kind of filled him in the way that I did with you guys. And so sure enough, started the process right away, went to Israel in September of 2018 and Eric and John were on this same trip as me. So got the chance to get to know these guys really well over the last year and a half. And I continued playing independent ball up until last year. I was playing in the Can-Am Professional League, and I was in Quebec City, Canada. Where I left a few times to go with Eric to Bulgaria and Lithuania, where we won both of those tournaments and qualified for the next rounds in Germany and Italy, where John was able to rejoin us at that point. And then this winter, I played winter ball in the Australian Baseball League. And following that, I went right to Arizona to throw and try out basically for a few teams, where I ended up signing a contract with the Chicago Cubs. So that's kind of where my career stands right now. I had a few weeks in spring training before we were sent back home, and currently continuing to train for if there's a season and stay ready for whenever the time comes and our names are called. So I'm staying in baseball shape every single day. And of course that training is also for the hopefully upcoming Olympics and World Baseball Classic next year, but that's all. We're waiting just like everybody else to hear what happens. So that's kind of my story and how I got connected and where I'm at in baseball. So I guess Jonathan number 2 is next, John Moscott.
JM, so John Moscott. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yeah. You were muted for a second there. I didn't know if I had the floor.
No worries. I'm just going to turn over to you. You need no introduction. So you got your Pepperdine degree in the background, and
it's the only place in the apartment that has decent lighting. So I gotta pick and choose.
It's tough. I'm in just so you know, I'm in a dark room, and because it's impossible to find lighting. So I think you did a good job. So congratulations there.
It's a good segue. I think the Pepperdine. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was saying, please give your background. Obviously, it's so impressive from high school, college, and playing in the pros, and then also maybe touch on your trip to Israel, because I think that's really important for people to hear the goodwill mission that you went on with guys like Gabe Kapler and some other pro players, and really got to see the field and meet some of the kids. So yeah, please, the floor is all yours.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for having me. This is awesome for everyone who's on. Thank you for being here. When I first started playing baseball, it was my dad's dream. It was my dad's I grew up playing stickball in Brooklyn, and I was not good at ball. And I want to live vicariously through you because I didn't get to experience that. I grew up envying Sandy Koufax, and at that time for me, I was so young. I just fell into it. I loved it. I started loving it myself, and I grew up idolizing Sandy Koufax and Sean Green and all the Jewish ball players that I would watch. And it was something that it was a special bond between my dad and I, where we would always talk about it. We'd talk about different ball players, and specifically Jewish ball players. We went to I grew up practicing or non-practicing Orthodox, going to Chabad as well, and you don't see baseball players there. There just aren't ball players at Chabad. It was kind of cool to be a part of that community and also be out on the field with the athletes. And then I got into Pepperdine, which I went to a junior college, got into Pepperdine, and which is a completely Christian school. You know, I didn't even think about that when I signed my scholarship there. I just wanted to go play baseball. And, you know, it really kind of made me look inside and value my own value system and really cherish my upbringing and the uniqueness that I had going into a school like that, where, you know, there was everyone else on the team was Christian or Catholic, and I was the only Jewish guy. And it was a time for me to reflect and really understand that it really was important to me. And I have strong ties to Israel. My uncle lives there. He's lived there for the last 35 years. All my cousins live there. So I've been to Israel multiple times prior to the trip. My family is there. I just, you know, I've very strong ties. My dad took me there. You know, when my grandma passed, we went over there. And so I've been there many times and have a strong affinity for Israel, for my family who's there. And yeah, I went to Pepperdine, got drafted by the Cincinnati Reds, came up through that farm system, ended up making my major league debut at 23 years old. Had a freak injury. Actually, it struck Ian Kinsler out the pitch before I ended up breaking my left shoulder on a freak play where I got in a rundown and tagged someone out and broke my shoulder. And then that next following year, I was pitching against the Mets in New York and re-injured that aggravated that left shoulder, which led to a right arm injury, and it ended up ultimately ending my career just based on, you know, usage. I just couldn't bear the burden of pitching for so many pitches for so long. But what it did do is it gave me the opportunity. I was supposed to pitch with Marquis and all of those guys in the 2017 World Baseball Classic. I was supposed to be one of the starting pitchers on that team. Had that Tommy John surgery right before that, the summer before that. Didn't get an opportunity to play. Had been in touch with the organizers, Peter Kurz, and all of the people that had put that together, that WBC team together. So, you know, I got a call saying, hey, would you like to come to Israel on a goodwill tour? It's going to be a bunch of ex-major league guys or major league guys, Gabe Kapler, Sam Fold, Ryan Lavarnway, Ty Kelly, Ike Davis. It was a big group of guys. We had an amazing trip. We got to sign autographs, meet the youth, just really get in touch with the youth of Israel. I got to see personally some family, and just an incredible trip overall. So it was natural for me when Peter called and said, hey, do you want to be on this team? Would you like to make a Aliyah? I just said, absolutely, man. There's no question in my mind that this is the right thing to do. I think I'd be mad at myself if I didn't do that. So it's you know, it's been an incredible experience. I've been fortunate enough to stay healthy in this process and be able to help the team kind of clinch that Olympic berth, and hopefully we'll do so as well in Tokyo next summer. So.
Well, a couple of you mentioned Peter Kurtz. So Peter, if there was a Baseball Israel Hall of Fame, he would be probably the first inductee, and he's actually on the call. It's 4 a.m. In Israel, so I was scrolling through and I saw his picture there. So watch what you say. So we're just going to fire away some questions. So whoever's running it from JNF, maybe we can make the screen, you know, for I guess the three players. Maybe just talk about, you know, from a baseball perspective, then we'll get to, you know, what people want to hear when it comes to representing Israel and the Olympics and Judaism. How are you guys preparing for, you know, for baseball, for the World Baseball Classic? You can't just say to a buddy of yours or to your mom or your dad, hey, can you go and catch a 90-mile-per-hour fastball or a curveball, or, you know, what are you guys doing to stay loose while you're quarantined, while you're with family, while you're away from your coaches and your fields and your facilities? So why don't we start with Eric, because you got a unique situation because you're obviously working during the day, and then maybe we can go to JDM and to John Moscott. Eric, you want to start with that one? Or why don't we do John's?
Sorry. I was
no worries.
in and out of mute for, you know, obviously Zoom problems.
No worries.
Yeah, I mean, it's was kind of crazy. I was going back and forth with Gabe Kramer, who was also a guy on our team, another guy that lived in New York. And, really before all this, we were going to our coach, Eric Holtz's place every weekend, wake up at 6:30, 7 a.m. on a Saturday, rent a zip car, go up there for a couple hours, throw a bullpen before anyone else gets in the cage, work out. And then that was kind of our routine. We'd get together, once or twice a week. On top of that, throw. But we were both guys that, we weren't training to play pro ball. We were really training for that and, only for the Olympic team. So we were doing everything we could. We were, squeezing in outside of work and all that. But now, yeah, I would say it's definitely been a lot more challenging, and you kind of make ways and you kind of find to get it in any way you can. Whether it's for me, I've been throwing a football quite a lot to keep my arm in shape. Knowing that I have a lot of time to get back into baseball specific, working on my breaking balls and that sort of stuff, making sure my arm is nice and loose, and kind of been my main focus on top of staying in shape. But I know guys like John DeMarty, who's been training for the minor league season, he's got something much more pressing and much more imminent coming up. So I feel like that's a pretty good transition over to him.
Yeah, John, please share what's going on with you.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I'm still kind of training every day, staying ready, keeping my arm in shape, throwing off the mound, throwing bullpens, facing batters like once or twice a week, just because we don't know when exactly we're going to be called back. But I pretty much, once spring training was suspended, I had to decide to either go back home to New York, to Westchester County, where things were pretty bad, or to so I was living in spring training with my brother, who works in the front office for the Angels. So I went out there with him when I said I was trying out for some of these teams and signed my contract with the Cubs. So I was living with him during spring training. So when this happened, we kind of had to figure out what to do. So he lives in Newport Beach, California, since he works at the Angels Stadium, and decided to come here with him. Just weather was much nicer at the time when spring training was canceled than it would be in New York. So I knew if gyms are closed or if I can't find a throwing partner or anything, I'd be able to go outside and use a fence and find space outside. But I've actually gotten pretty lucky. Zach Weiss, another member of our team, lives very close by to where we are out here in Southern California. So I knew that coming out here, I would have a throwing partner. My brother was a catcher in college, so I knew that no matter what, we would have a catcher that could catch our bullpens, catch our mound work, and handle us. And there's a facility that we're able to get our training in out here in California. And they're only allowing a kind of select small group of guys in. So it's a pretty safe and secure opportunity. So fortunately, I've been able to do everything that I need to from a baseball standpoint to be ready and stay ready, minus just not having the best mounds or fields to use and trying to use little league fields and whatnot to get on a dirt mound. But I'm pretty much able to do everything that I need to from a preparation standpoint. And it's just the geographical location has significantly changed for me to a place that was very, very unexpected. So that's kind of my preparation and where I'm at right now. And for me, of course, the priority right now is whenever we're going to get called back to spring training or for a season to start. But at the same time, I will continue to stay ready for whenever our next event is with Team Israel. So.
And John, how are you, John Moscott? How are you? I know I think you're working in baseball now. So how are you staying loose? How are you? Are you throwing right now? Are you still rehabbing? What's your
No, I'm good.
What's your current situation?
Yeah, I'm healthy. So currently, the wall is my best friend. I throw a lot of the heavy balls into the wall to kind of simulate and overstimulate my arm and get going there. And I also, another former teammate and one of my close friends, Lucas Giolito, lives up here in Sacramento with me, and we play catch pretty regularly. He's trying to stay in shape, obviously, for the season that's coming up. He's with the White Sox, and so I'm doing that for catch, and then workouts are I don't have access to a gym, so I'm getting real creative with the body weight workouts that I'm doing. I've even started getting into some CrossFit. Can't believe I'm saying that, but I've dabbled there, and it's been good. Going for runs, stretching, taking some time to really take care of my body. And, when hitters get back into the box, I'll be ready to go.
That's great. So we have some questions coming up in the chat. Feel free to, anytime you have a question, to comment, whatever it might be. There's a chat box that you can just type into. I'll show you where it is. So we have one question that came through, and we don't all have to answer it, so I'm just going to kind of fire away. But let's just start with John DeMarde. So I believe you played in Italy, and the question comes from Adam Slotnick. How do you feel about being an ambassador for Israel? What reception do you have from people in the streets? When you did go to Israel, when you go to other countries and people see you walking around with the shirt that you're wearing now.
Well, I will say I did not exactly walk the streets in this shirt. That was one thing that was advised against us, to wear Israel gear outside of the playing field or outside of events. But how does it feel to be an ambassador? I mean, it's a feeling I would never have been able to describe before, but something I'm very, very thankful to have. I think that part of responsibility of being a part of this team is where, like you said, wherever you go, wherever you walk around, like, you're not just representing Israel baseball, like, you're representing an entire country, and an entire connection and group of Jewish people all over the world. So I think no matter whatever decisions I make and what I do, I know in the back of my mind that I'm not just representing Israel baseball, but the entire country. So that's one thing that I keep in mind with every decision I make, everything that I say. But I think to have the opportunity to unite Jewish people and Israelis all over the world through sport, and bring people together through something that we can hopefully achieve and represent Israel on an international stage, is something that, like I said, I keep talking about all of the training and preparation that we're doing, but part of this is not just to enhance my career, but to put Israel baseball on the map. And with regards to, I know we've mentioned it a little bit, but haven't gotten into it that much. One of the most eye-opening experiences for me was the first time we went to Israel and had the opportunity to work with youth athletes. You see that everybody involved, Peter Kurz, everybody involved with Israel baseball is trying to do everything that they possibly can to help guys and help youth baseball players in Israel get better. But unfortunately, they lack the facilities, the knowledge, the expertise that we get in America. So it was pretty amazing when you go there and the kids are listening so intently and want to learn every single thing they possibly can from you. So for me to see these guys want to learn and want to get better to the best of their ability is something that really attracted me and was eye-opening, was to the point where, wow, like I'm representing youth baseball players in Israel with everything that I do. So I have a really, really big opportunity in my short time here to have an impact on them. So I think for me, that was the biggest eye-opening experience. Wow, you're not just representing Israelis, Jewish people all over the world, but groups of younger kids that want to be like me someday. So yeah, really, it's amazing to be able to serve as an ambassador for Israel and Jewish people all over the world.
Great. Eric, you have something unique right now because you're working in the finance world. So what's it like, when everyone on this call, a lot of people are obviously, working 9-to-5 jobs per se. What's it like being on calls and you're talking to people and they say, any plans for the summer? And you say, yeah, I'm playing in the Olympics. I'm representing Israel. What are people's reaction? Because you're kind of, you're kind of into both worlds. You're into the professional sports as well as, the finance world.
Yeah, I've actually been very fortunate to work at a firm that's been so generous with, giving me the time and the resources that I need to really be in shape and to be as, in as good of a position as I possibly can. But yeah, it's people are kind of, dumbfounded and astounded when you sort of put it all together. I probably am working on the magnitude probably closer to between 55 to 65 hours a week. And then, it's really just finding time after work and making sure that this is something that, you're really prioritizing. So while other people, there's a lot of things that they're prioritizing outside of work, this is the thing that, I'm really, this is my focus, this is my priority. And I think people get that and they recognize and sort of, they think it's something that's incredibly cool. I think it gives them something to, we talk about something other than business for a while, which is great also. So and it's a cool opportunity to, get people to sort of see, I would say, both sides of me, I guess, in a way, and to sort of see that the Israeli baseball team, we come from a crazy variety of backgrounds, and we're all really unified by this, huge overarching factor, and it's bringing us all together, and it's really drove us throughout the tournaments and in the past, and gotten us to the place where we are. So it's cool to really be able to talk about that and talk about, the unique background and everything. So I think people really do, they appreciate it. They recognize it's something very atypical and out of the ordinary. So it's really been great. And I might add, Jordy Alter, who I see is also on the call, the president of IAB. His brother is a managing director in my division. So it's cool to come back from Bulgaria, come back from Lithuania, Italy and Germany, and have him right at my desk, coming right up to me, asking questions, how was this hitter on this team, blah, 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 and everything. So, I think from a little bit of a notoriety and people getting to know the perspective, it's also been, really, really fortunate and a blessing for me.
Right. John Moscott, maybe you can touch on this. So what's it like to make Aliyah? What's the process like? This is actually a question from the audience. And this is kind of might come off strange, but did you have to do anything to prove your Jewishness? I remember at the first World Baseball Classic, Sean Green and Gabe Kapler and all these guys, they had to send, their birth certificates with, or pictures from a bar mitzvah, or they had to send, their grandparents' gravestone with the Hebrew writing. Is there anything you had to go through to make Aliyah that you said, wow, I can't believe I just did that?
So yeah, we had to get a letter from a rabbi saying, hey, I vouch that this person has lived a Jewish life and lives a Jewish life. And it's a funny story. Like, so I told you I went to Chabad growing up, and I would say I was very Jewish growing up. Like we would have every Friday night, we'd have Shabbat. We'd pretty much adhere on Saturdays unless there was a baseball game to Shabbat. And so, it was funny. I went to my rabbi and I asked him for a letter, and he said, well, where's your mom's conversion letter? And I was like, I went to my mom, and she looked at me and she's like, I have no idea where that is. She didn't know. So we didn't have the original. We had a copy, and he wouldn't sign a letter saying that I was officially Jewish because he didn't have the original copy. So I ended up going to the other temple in town, and they said, no, this guy's Jewish. And so they wrote the letter, and I ended up being able to make Aliyah, and it worked out. When we went over there, that process, going into the ministry, everyone was just so helpful and so excited that we were a part of it. Whether or not we were baseball players, just, Jews coming to Israel, making Aliyah, and being a part of that process was, I think, really, it was really special for not only us, but for them. And then in that whole process, Peter and Jordy and everyone out there, and Margot, all the people that are a part of Israel baseball, that, they're just behind the scenes so much. They do so much for us and make this whole thing run, So I want to just send a shout out to them for being as awesome as they are and doing all this stuff. And John DeMarty said earlier about talking about seeing the smiles in the kids' faces. When you go out there and you see guys practicing on an infield that should not be a baseball infield, with all the hops that the balls take on it and dirt patches and whatnot. It's just it's awesome to have events like this where, you know, we know that we're eventually making a difference there, and that kids can grow up and have an opportunity to experience the experiences that we've had, and the game has given us, you know. So giving back to them a little bit throughout this process has been so special, and beyond the incredible opportunity that we have to play at the Olympics and on the Olympic stage, and represent Israel. I think it's equally as important to recognize that this opportunity is not only for ourselves, but for, you know, the youth and everyone that's in Israel right now.
That's great. John, anything to add from your side? Did they look at your name and just say, I'm sorry, you can't get in?
No, I don't think I've ever heard that story from John Moscott, so I was pretty surprised to hear that. Mine was very, very straightforward. I mean, we had a very good relationship with my rabbi. I know my mom during the time was either in contact with him or had seen him around that time. Also, I don't know if anybody has seen Heading Home, the story about the 2017 World Baseball Classic team. The director of that film actually belongs to the temple that I grew up going to. So no, I had no difficulties, no issues with my letter from my rabbi. So I'm sorry you had to go through that, John. That's probably me that should have gone through that process. But I mean, no, it was pretty straightforward for me.
And what about you, Eric? They just said you're fine. You looked the part. You got the name. You can just come on in.
Yeah, I would say that my rabbi was pretty much pressuring me to join the team before I even got the invitation.
You just passed the test. They just said you got this. You got the resume. You got everything.
Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, it was, yeah, it's for us it was really a really straightforward process, and something that I know they've gone through a lot of steps to make it streamlined, and to make it as easy for people who want to make Aliyah as possible. But as John Moscott said, you know, there's a lot of people from the baseball side that really work behind the scenes to make it as easy as possible. So, you know, I got the go ahead from my rabbi. He essentially said, you know, yes, obviously, you know, where was this in 2017 on the World Baseball Classic team? Yeah, it was really, really straightforward from my side.
John Moscott, maybe share a story or two. Anything that you know from the trip to Israel, playing with Team Israel. You know, that was a funny experience, or anything that you're not looking forward to in the Olympics?
Not looking forward to?
Not looking forward to. Think about the travel. Think about,
yeah.
You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess with the state of the world right now, who knows what Olympic Village is going to look like and what the situation is going to be. So, you know, I in one sense, I was really hoping that my wife could come to the games and be able to experience it this last summer. But we were just struggling to figure out where she was going to stay, because we qualified so late that, you know, it was so expensive, and like we couldn't even find a hotel. So we've luckily, you know, that's been pushed out a little bit. So I'm actually looking forward to the opportunity to be able to book that. But in the same sense, like, there's going to be a whole nother headache with what's going on now in the world and trying to figure all that out. So yeah, and then a roundabout way, if that answers that.
Yeah, you know, John, you've obviously had you've been European, John DeMarte. You've been European baseball. You've been in the qualifiers. You've been in World Baseball Classic. Any stories from the road that, you know, from playing with some of these ex-pro players? Anything to share?
Yeah, I have one interesting point. I was not on the World Baseball Classic team. Hopefully would have been on the team next year if that still happens, if it's not pushed back. I was still in college in 2017 when that whole thing happened, so I don't have anything to share from then. But I guess one point that I won't forget that I've shared a little bit was I feel like both Eric and John were in like my corner of the dugout when this was said, and I remember like I was having conversations with some guys in the dugout about like how the atmosphere and the conversations in our dugout were a lot different than anything that we were used to, being involved in college baseball or professional baseball. I'm a relief pitcher, so a lot of my time in professional baseball is spent in the bullpen, and conversations go to all different lengths that you could never imagine. But I will say, like, being in the dugout with a group of guys like this, like, I felt like our topic of conversation was so much different. Like it was very team oriented, very intellectually based. There was a lot of Judaism, I feel like, mixed into conversation, like things that I had never heard or learned before. Like I remember John Moscott, honestly, like in our driving around Israel on our first trip there in 2018, like talking about some of the different sites and landmarks and things that I had never heard or learned before. But I do remember Danny Valencia. I'm sure most of you guys have heard his name on this call. I remember him making a comment during this same game, or I think it was around this same day or something, where he said something along the lines of like he had never been involved in a baseball game where he wanted to win so badly. Like most of minor league baseball, you're playing for your own development and hopefully like being the best that you can so that you can play in the major leagues and make a career of this. So most of these guys, I'm sure John Moscott could agree with this, like this was probably the first time most guys are actually playing to win besides those guys that have made it to the major leagues. So to hear someone like Danny Valencia, nine-year major league career, say like this is the most he's ever wanted to win a baseball game in his life was such a humbling experience for me. It's like, wow, like look at some of these guys around me and the things that they've accomplished, and we're all on the field like working towards the same goal, representing the same group of people all over the world. So that was one experience that I remember in Germany, and like one feeling that I will never forget.
So we have time for just a couple more comments from each of you. So maybe just go around. Let's start with Eric. You guys are pitchers, so you're competitive. Let's assume the Olympics take place next year, and let's assume that pro players are allowed to play. What player are you looking forward to facing? And maybe start with Eric, and it could be from, there's only 6 teams playing, which is an amazing accomplishment. So I would assume at Yale you didn't get too much exposure to, to the top college programs. What player do you dream of facing and dream of striking out?
Yeah, so I guess I'll give you my brother's answer first, because he said when we were originally slated to potentially play a exhibition game against the Washington Nationals, and he goes, "Oh God, I hope that happens so Juan Soto can hit a ball 900 feet off of you." So I don't think he's actually going to be in the Olympics, but really it's been there are some major league guys on the Spain team. It's not facing off against one guy. It's really being able to, do everything that we can on our side to really be able to get the team win in whatever capacity we can. That story Moscott said about Ian Kinsler, striking Ian Kinsler out, is pretty cool. So he's going to be on our side, but maybe in an inter-squad game, striking out Kinsler wouldn't be too bad.
John DeMarte, any I guess, we're wrapping up now, so I know that you're quarantined with some buddies you mentioned. That's why you're in sort of, it looks like, almost like a small apartment you were mentioning. Mm-hmm. Any parting notes for everyone that's tuned in tonight?
No, I mean, I wish that we could provide some kind of entertainment in the next 2 months with the Olympics, but unfortunately we can't do that. But I mean, I think all of us involved, I know we're kind of spaced all over the country with regards to our roster, but I think for most guys, pretty much everyone that I've spoken to, just everyone is doing their part to stay involved, stay ready, and stay in shape the best that they possibly can. Like guys like Eric and Gabe Kramer and John now as well. Like I don't know how guys can work a full-time job and train for baseball and stay ready for baseball on top of it. I mean, given the amount of time it takes me to put my baseball work in, I applaud guys like that who are able to make this a priority on top of what's going on in their own lives. So I just hope that everybody knows that we're doing everything that we possibly can to be ready and be in the best shape that we possibly can whenever the next opportunity that we have to represent Israel baseball is. And I mean, we're looking forward to the Olympics, World Baseball Classic, or whatever comes next just as much as you all are. So thanks for listening, and we can't wait for it.
John Moscott?
Well, 2 things. First of all, I think a lot of people count us always as the underdog. And I think it's been that way from day one. I think we like it like that, but if you're signed on right now, just expect us to win next year, because we're not going in there thinking we're going to lose. And the second part of that would be, thank you all for joining. Getting 100 people together in one place, 100 plus, it's not really easy. I've been on a lot of Zoom calls and it doesn't work so smoothly. So thanks so much for spending some time with us tonight.
That's great. Well, this was incredible, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time, for all you do. You know, and that's really exciting to hear from someone like yourself that, you know, we're going to win. And we all remember the World Baseball Classic. We all just finished watching The Last Dance by the Michael Jordan documentary. So hopefully they're going to make a documentary on your, you know, Olympic victories. So now I'm going to turn it over to JNF. We're just going to touch on some of the work that we're doing. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for taking the time. Good luck. You know, we appreciate you, and you know, we're excited to follow the journey.
Thank you for everything you guys are doing too. We really do appreciate everything.
Yeah, thank you guys for helping out. These opportunities would not be possible without everyone involved. So just like Eric said, thank you.
Jeff, great job moderating. Thank you so much. I'm going to milk this a little bit because this is probably the closest I'll ever get to meeting major leaguers and baseball players. You guys are awesome. So listen, every Jewish young boy dreams, and girl, dreams of playing a major league sport, baseball, whatever it may be. And unfortunately, God gave us a lot of things, but athleticism wasn't top of the list. So you guys are awesome. Honestly, it's been amazing seeing you guys speak tonight. I'm a Yankees fan. I'm sorry if that bothers anyone. I saw a Red Sox hat on. Someone's wearing a Red Sox hat. My apologies to you. But without baseball right now, I was so excited this is actually something I was so excited to be on this call with you guys, and having a little bit of baseball in my life right now. So hopefully baseball will come back soon, and hopefully it'll unite us and bring us some sort of joy during this time. My name is Josh Goodkin, and I'm the president of the JNFuture chapter here in New Jersey. I'll just ask you guys, if you guys want to become members of JNFuture, let's talk. I'd love to get you guys involved. I actually related to something that Jonathan DeMarte said about, you know, losing touch with being Jewish and Zionism. I was the same way. I mean, you know, you grow up in a Jewish home, you go off to college, you lose a little bit of something if you don't have, you know, a strong connection on campus. And I lost that connection. And it wasn't until I went on a trip with JNF, one of their many amazing trips, actually, where I saw what was going on in Israel. I saw how JNF was impacting the land and helping the people. And I came back and said, I really want to get involved in this organization. I want to make a difference. And I'm part of an amazing group of young people, you know, 22 to 40, over 1,000 donors across the country who are holding events in their homes, having various speakers. We're trying to let people know, young people in this country know what JNF is doing and how they're making an impact. And I am so fortunate to be part of this organization. So fortunate to have a part in shaping our homeland. And again, you guys are rock stars. You guys are awesome. I cannot wait to watch you guys in the Olympics. So what's the point of the call today? Obviously, you know, baseball is America's favorite pastime. And the point of the call really is to bring you guys on and learn more about you and what you guys are doing. And but really, what is Project Baseball? It's focused on building state-of-the-art baseball and softball fields throughout the country, while also supporting and teaching baseball and softball to Israeli youth through Little Leagues, summer camps, clinics, giving Israeli children an opportunity to learn life lessons while building lasting friendships. Children who have made Aliyah get a taste of home and a way to bond with their new Israeli peers. These children have something familiar to look forward to and a commonality that bridges the cultural gap of moving to a new place. All money that JNF raises is split between supporting our development of baseball in Israel and sending Team Israel to the Olympics. And without the support of the Jewish National Fund, Israel's Sports Authority would not be able to financially support the baseball team as they head to Tokyo for the Olympics. This evening, you have a unique opportunity to help send Team Israel to the Olympics while helping to develop the fields and leagues of baseball and softball within Israel. And so tonight, as a diehard baseball fan, and I'm sure many of you on the call are as well, I'll ask that you consider making an investment in this valuable initiative. And while you're about to receive a text or an email to donate, the official link to make that happen, you'll find the chat box to the right. And if you need the email address, I can give it, or the address, it's jnf.org/JNFuture, JNFUTURE, team donate. Whatever you can do to help is appreciative, and it's only going to help send these three guys and their team to the Olympics and hopefully send them to victory. Just as a reminder, May is JNF Women's Month, and this year, through a very generous donor, we have a gift match for all women who donate in May up to $1 million. So if you are a woman and you want to make a gift this evening, your gift is doubled. And finally, some exciting news for baseball fans out here on the call. Everyone who donates using this link will be entered into a JNF raffle to win a team baseball personally signed by Team Israel, just like the one in the picture on your screen. I'll add even more. This is very exciting. For those who give $2,020 in donation, you get a generic Team Israel jersey. And if you choose to give $5,000, you get a custom jersey. Awesome, awesome, awesome benefits. I want to just thank Lou Rosenberg on the call, the professional in charge of the baseball task force, as well as Mark Ratner on the call, the chair of the baseball task force, both amazing people and taking their passion for baseball and turning it into a worthy cause for JNF. So with that said, I thank you for giving me the time. Again, you guys are amazing. I only wish I could be in your position. I'm jealous. I really truly am. And I will hand it over to Allison Cheney to close this evening's call.
Thank you, Josh, Jeff, and our Team Israel players, Eric, John, and Jonathan, for providing a great presentation and interactive discussion. We are so proud of all of you and what you have done for Israel. We look forward to seeing Team Israel compete in the now 2021 Olympics. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. We hope you enjoyed the event, and JNF has many more virtual programs being offered every week. A schedule can be found at jnf.org/on-demand. There's something for everyone, all times of day and all time zones. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we wish everyone a fabulous evening.